Hello and welcome to the Ultimate Crafting Guide from Rise of Shadows. Here I will talk about the legendaries that you should craft or just disenchant. I will put them in 3 tiers. The first one will be a must craft and include in most of your decks. It's a really safe craft because it will be pretty powerful in this expansion and in future ones. Tier 2 is that you should hold on with it, do not craft it, do not disenchant this, because there are a few decks that might include this card or run this, but the problem is that they belong to tier 2, so it's not as that powerful, or they might be stronger over the time, or sometimes they can be replaced. And tier 3, it's a pure dust, it's a trash, and it will probably never see play, or at least the amount of support should be really huge from next few future expansions in order to make this work. And we'll start with tier 3, so how can you get dust out from this expansion? The Nozari is a really bad card. I mean, it makes a little bit of sense in some sort of control or dual paladin, but paladin right now, according to statistics, is the worst class in the whole expansion. So like, not only you will play with a pretty bad class, but also on top of it a pretty bad card by itself. It's too expensive, it doesn't make any kind of sense, so yeah. Just dust. Tag Nosewhisker. Okay, you can argue because you can play this in, for example, Pogo Rogue or, for example, Academic Meme Rogue, but both archetypes are pretty weak with win ratio even below 50%. So, like, you can have a little bit of fun, but usually you will lose the game. So, like, in the meme scale, yeah, okay, it's pretty high, but this card is trash. Fair Lord, okay, it can be included in Plot Twist Warlock, but Plot Twist Warlock is another pretty bad deck. It's really hard to make it work, and that's the only combo that makes any kind of sense with this card. So once again, dust. And the Boom River, this might be like theoretically the best card out from this tier 3, because you can include this in Big Warrior, but Big Warrior is not really as that powerful. It's a fun deck to play with and will, for example, pull out a really huge minion out from your deck, but most of the times it's just not powerful enough and it's a little bit too expensive. And the tier 2, there is a potential in these cards, or there is a tier 2 deck for them, or they will be better over the time. So if you're super short on dust, you might theoretically disenchant them if you're not interested in any kind of specific archetype, but I do not really recommend this. So Khadgar and Caligus, both of those decks are included in the 4th best deck at the moment, which is Summoner Dragon Mage, which is a pretty cool option, but the whole deck is pretty expensive. So if you do not really want to run this kind of thing, you might disenchant them. Madame Lazul, actually it's not included in any of decks at the moment, or at least not the powerful one, but in my opinion this is a great card like by itself, and it will get better when, for example, in next expansion Priest will get more board clears or any kind of control tools, so then it will be pretty powerful. But sadly right now there is just no deck for it, because Control Priest is not powerful enough. Katrina Muerte, I actually played with Resurrect Priest, and I really recommend this deck if you want to have a little bit of fun and also positive win ratio. It's not the highest, it's not the like top deck, but you can still have something around the 55% win ratio, which is in my opinion satisfying, and then you might want to keep this card. Commander Risa, another interesting card, and not as that powerful at some point, because the Secret Paladin is just pretty mediocre. The win ratio is something around 55, maybe a little bit higher. So then if you want to play with Secret Paladin, you definitely need to keep this card, otherwise you might disenchant this. Windrunner, this is one of those weird cards that's not as that powerful, but it just makes sense if you want to play for fun. For example, in the Malagus Hunter, or just a Spell Hunter based on the Zul'jin. Then there are a lot of spells that you might want to empower with this Windrunner. The only problem is that this weapon can be easily countered, because everyone right now runs Harrison Jones, and sometimes even 2 oozes, so then you won't just get the full value out from this card, so that's a little bit sad. The Oblivitron, actually, Mech Hunter is more powerful than I thought. It's actually in tier 2, so another deck with a positive win ratio, something around 55, which is pretty okay. If you want to play with this kind of deck, definitely you should even craft this, but otherwise just get your dust. And Loosened Bark, once again, a pretty fun card and powerful thing, because right now when we face a lot of tempo rogues, you can easily, you know, take damage to your face as a druid player and then heal yourself to get Loosened Bark back. I already played with Healing Druid, and I recommend this if you want to try something slightly off meta, once again, with the positive win ratio, because you will just resurrect this. You might place Faceless Manipulator on it to get like few Loosened Barks and just you know, restore health and then get this back. I managed to even like get 20 Loosened Barks in one game, so whoa, that was sick. But really, once again, if you want to play Healing Druid, you should definitely have this card, otherwise dust. And another 5 cards that belong to tier 2. Swamping Haggadah is a really powerful card, but the problem is that Control Shamey is just not strong enough. It will be better in the next expansion, for example, when they will print another board clear, but right now I think it's just, you know, not strong enough in this archetype. So like that's the problem, because card by itself is great. Scargill can be replaced in most of the Shamey decks, but when I played few versions, slightly slower one with Overload and Thunderhead, and also more aggressive and Murloc focused, I have to say that Scargill is really great. So if you really want to play with it, craft it, because this is such a power play a little bit later on, not on turn 4 on Carve, but with the, for example, Underbelly Angler to get more Murlocs and create a huge board out from nowhere. The other plan is that you just play this on turn 6 or 5, for example, with any other expensive Murloc like Tasty Fin or Cold Light Seer or Murloc War Leader, and then you get additional value because you just cheat on mana. Joybuzz, this is one of those meme cards that will allow you to enable any kind of sick combos. The problem is that those decks are usually not consistent enough, and they are developed in order to counter some sort of control decks. And right now, when we see a little bit like too many mid-range, tempo, and aggressive decks, it's just not strong enough. It's a little bit like too slow in most of the things. Then Chief Nomi, once again, like this card is pretty cool because you can play this in some sort of miracle decks that cycle through your deck pretty quickly. Also in some sort of control decks, if you want to get some sort of like fatigue value. But the problem is that Archivist Lysiana is just way better, because then you just cover more stuff, then fatigue is a smaller problem. You can also combine this with Baleful Bunker to get twice the amount of value. So I think that Chief Nomi is just not powerful enough, but it makes sense in, for example, Tempo Rogue as the finisher after you will play Myra's Unstable Elemental. And Barista, once again, this is one of those specific cards that you know, this is an answer to, for example, a specific meta, and if you want to get this minion, this specific minion. So right now there is no space for this kind of thing, except, for example, like Control or Shudderwock Shamey, which is not the powerful deck, by the way, but this kind of effect is really strong, so you should really hold on with this, because the time will show how powerful this card is. And tier 1, those cards are super powerful, not only now and in top decks, but also they will be powerful in the future expansions. So first we'll start with the Keeper Stalandris. This card is great already in Token Druid, which is one of the best decks at the moment, but at the same time you can include this in any kind of different deck, a little bit slower version, for example, because you can combine this with Wrath, Nourish, and a few other things. Just like those Choose One spells are really great on its own, and when you can also like upgrade this at some point, because you will just draw more with the Keeper Stalandris, that's great, and when they will print even more of this kind of cards, it will be better over the time. Haste Baron Toggle Woggle, once again, this card is great. Actually, Lackeys are a pretty common thing in any kind of rogue deck, so you should definitely include this, and this is one of those power plays a little bit later on, especially because Preparation is so popular, so then you can usually play this spell right away, and I think the best outcome is usually just picking up legendaries because you develop enough stuff on board. I really like this card, really, and it's also super flexible and pretty easy to trigger. Rafam, once again, a great thing because Bombo Warrior is super popular, and I'm surprised, but actually not only this makes a lot of sense in, for example, Handlock, but also it might be included in Control Warlock and also Zoo. And Zoo is like, once again, one of the strongest decks at the moment that belong to, to tier 1, so you should definitely craft this. Then Blastmaster Boom, just like I mentioned, yeah, Bomb Warrior is actually a thing, and it's really powerful. It's like even stronger than the old version of the Dr. Boom, because you can consistently get at least 4 or usually just 6 bombs, so it's just, you know, the amount of value that you get is enormous. And then Archivist, because Control Warrior is pretty powerful, and actually control decks in general, and just you need to find a way to counter not only bombs but also fatigue. Archivist is a perfect answer, and it will stick. You know, this card will be with us for a really long time because this have a really powerful effect. As always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, remember to leave a like and subscribe, and today during the live stream we'll test out even more decks, and I will just try to counter the meta, so you might want to check this out and ask any kind of questions. So see you later, alligator, and may the gachi be with you.